How you doing, folks? We're moments away from Jets podcast. Well, I'll be talking to Eddie F about the debacle that took place this Sunday. Get his opinion on it. Give you my opinion on it. See what the Jets are going to do this Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Thanks, guys. All right, welcome. We're here. Little hiatus last week. It's hard to get everybody on the same page, but the important thing is we're here now, and we get to talk about what happened on Sunday against the Broncos, which something I thought was going to be impossible to happen. First of all, I have my little solo stove mini over here blazing. I'm sitting outside under the porch lights. I got my cigar. I got my Jameson cold brew, and I got Eddie ready to rock and roll. Ed, welcome, and let's
Thanks,
kick it
Dave.
off. I mean, there's probably a lot to talk about here, a lot to say, and the first thing is I have my opinion, of course, but that's why you're here. Let's hear what you have to say about the feeling you have about the Sunday's game.
I think I summed up before we got on here, Dave. Same old Jets. I mean, after the two-game winning streak, I was expecting them to really roll over Denver. I think we both did. We talked about, I think, a
Yeah.
score earlier in the week. We thought there was going to be, what was it, 24-10 or not even close. We thought the Jets were going to really come out strong.
Mhm.
Perhaps the weather played a part. It was a sloppy field, but Knicks played well enough to win the game. My takeaways though from the game is, I mean, first of all, very sloppy. I mean, you had two offsides lining up in the neutral zone. How did that happen? How are you a pro at that point, and that happens to you twice in a game? That upset me greatly. It looks like a little sloppy, undisciplined. Two, Rodgers, although he made some nice throws, I'm not gonna, which he did. There was a lot of throws that were almost like bounce passes that didn't get there, that he didn't reach. It looked like he's afraid to go long sometimes. I don't know if it was just the bad weather, the condition. But like I said, Knicks is a younger guy, so obviously it didn't impact him as much as it impacted Aaron Rodgers. But I just had a bit, didn't feel good about this game. And then you have the injury now to Rodgers. I'm not sure how he was limited. I was looked up to. I don't know if you did the same thing, Dad. Looking at
Yeah,
practice this week.
he's got a swollen knee or something like that. Something with the knee, swollen knee, whatever.
He
Well,
he limited he had a limited practice today, so it's
I
and
mean, I
long
mean,
flight out to London. We'll see. Let's see what happens.
Here's the thing, Ed. Uh, let's cut right to the chase. Did you ever think it was even possible with this, with the plays we have on this team? Did you ever think it was possible for this team with this new offensive line, number one draft pick, and three more new starters, and Braylon Allen, who's come out of nowhere, and Bryce, all this talent? Did you ever think, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, the top of did you ever think it was possible for them to play as if Zach Wilson was at the helms, that they could even score a touchdown? I mean, can you even possibly phantom that in your wildest dreams that was going to happen?
That's a great point, especially with Zach Wilson on the sideline for that game, right?
Yeah,
That
I
was
mean, it's.
and also like even like go back to the point I made, the sloppiness. I mean, they're fourth and goal from inside the one, and what happens? False start. I mean, you would have hoped at that point, they could have at least punched it at that point, but it was just as sloppy.
Well, Braylon Allen, every time he ran the ball, he always went forward. So, like, I mean, I don't know. Is it Salah calling the plays? Is it Rodgers calling the plays? Like, why not run Braylon Allen? You
Solid
know,
call the plays. It's Rogers' boy from Green Bay calling the plays.
it was a very bizarre game. I was so disappointed. I thought that I would never see a game like this as long as Rodgers was quarterbacking.
I
Now,
agree.
listen. Now, I mean, I hate to be silver lining and I hate to put a nice spin on it, but I have to at least play devil's advocate and say, you know what? Two things. Number one, our defense only gave up 13 points in the last two games. Okay? So, whatever that's worth. And number two, Denver only gave up a touchdown. Tampa Bay was only able to score a touchdown against the Broncos, and Tampa Bay's a pretty good team, I think, and they scored a whole bunch of points the following week. So, I mean, it's 4 games into the season. First of all, I want to say that this fourth game into the season, it seemed like the first time the Jets ever played together. I mean, it was horrendous. I mean, I
Still
can't,
waiting for the offensive line to meld, right? I mean, if they keep telling us, right?
I can't imagine. So, I mean, the thing is, you know, going forward, is Denver's defense the best defense in the league? It's hard to say. There's a lot of parity going on in these. I can't even bet these games the way they're going. It's just hard to say. Also, the Jets were the first time the Jets were a over a touchdown favored, 7.5 point favorites in like since 2015. They said, and of course they blew that also.
Got to
Uh,
the head.
but to see that the way they played, it was just. I mean, in the third quarter, I had some people over who were having coffee. I mean, I was apologizing to them. It was such a. I hate those kind of games, you know. Uh,
Agreed.
and like I said, I don't know what's going on with. It's just it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers clearly not on the same page, which is troubling as well.
I mean,
I think
listen. I
he
mean,
had a little snide, he had a little chatter yesterday, all right? Garrett Wilson complaining about his the his lack of offensive production fitting into the offense. So we'll see what happens.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I mean, wide receivers do that. So I mean, so the offense was horrendous. The false starts, the penalties. I mean, listen. I think we can both agree, and we're Jet fans, so we know it's possible. I think we can both agree it can't get much worse than that, or can't get worse than that.
a 10-9 loss in the rain at home, it can't get much worse than that.
It can't get worse than that.
Especially
Uh,
when the Jets, when they just about, when they give you they give you a little hope again with the long field goal to win the game, and they rip your heart out again. It's just the way the game ended.
yeah, well, I mean, and even if they would have won that game, I'd be complaining probably just the same. I mean, the fact of the matter is they barely beat Tennessee. They lost to the 49ers. They beat a team that's probably the
Bad
worst team
team.
in football,
They beat
in
up,
the
they beat up on they
Patriots.
beat up on a bad team.
Right. A bad team that's injured, of course, and San Francisco did a number on them as well, which was
San Francisco
expected.
outclassed them, yes.
You know. So I mean, listen, I enjoy this. I enjoy football, and even as a Jet fan, it's interesting to see this. This thing's going bad. It's interesting to see the press conferences afterwards and how they handle it. Uh, I mean, it's just absolutely insane. So now we're going to play the Minnesota Vikings, of course, with our old quarterback Sam Donald, who's having a
Oh
phenomenal
no,
year.
juggernaut.
You know. Uh, and now we're going to see what happens now as far as, listen, I'm just looking for the Jets. See, my thing is the Jets played bad. And I always said if they would have lost and scored 20 something points, 30 points, but to play like I look at losses on how you played the game. And to me, I really believe there were good losses and bad losses because if you lose to like the best team in football by field goal and you get into the playoffs, you could have beat them next time, But now we're going to play the Minnesota Vikings, who's they're 4-0, and we're going to see how the Jets
They got
respond,
they got
what they do
they got a
differently,
good defense. They got a really good defense,
you know.
Minnesota.
And listen, of course, the best case there is that we beat them, and then of course we'll hear the sports announcers again talk about how great the Jets are and how we're going to the Super Bowl in the playoffs. Then we'll probably lose to Buffalo. But, the thing is, not only we were hoping to beat Minnesota, but I think we'll also, you might agree, if we lose to them by a field goal and we don't have, all these penalties and false starts and everything, and we score maybe 24, 30 points, it'll look a little bit different going forward. What did you
It's
thought
a
about
weird
that?
game though. I mean, Rodgers is clearly banged up. I
Mm,
mean, he said on the Pat McAfee show his knees all a little swollen and might have used the term actually banged up. The line too. I mean, Morgan Moses did not practice this week. No, you know what else I found weird? I was going over the injury report today.
mm.
Tyrone Smith didn't practice either. Vet resting for vet. I mean, it's game 4. He's got to rest already. I mean, he's a lineman. I mean, I was game 5. He's got to rest. He's a day off from practice. I mean, I
Yeah,
found that. CJ Mosley did not practice this week either.
yeah.
He limited practice, and Aaron Wright had limited practice. So it's gonna be interesting to see.
Eh, eh,
I'm
You
sure
know,
Rodgers is one more hit. I'm getting afraid. He's gonna get that one big hit on Sunday, and that's gonna be
Oh
it.
yeah, oh absolutely. Ed, I just thought of this, and maybe you feel the same way. I'm really glad they're playing an undefeated team. Because like if we were going to play some crappy team and beat them, it'd be like, oh, okay, well we beat them, but who the hell are they? So what's your opinion on that? We're playing a good team, so I mean that means a lot.
Agreed. I mean, we obviously we both feel, when we were looking at the schedule earlier, we didn't think Minnesota was going to be this strong, obviously. It's better. Yeah. I mean, if you want to win, we're here for a champion. Aaron Rodgers did not come here to be in the wild card game and lose. So if you can't beat Minnesota, then you don't
Yeah.
deserve it. You don't
You know,
deserve it.
you,
So this is good. I agree. One thing that is this is a little. I find these games a little interesting. I mean, because the Jets could very easily. This could be an aberration because the Jets really and Minnesota as well. I mean, it's a whole weird concept going to London, the time zone, the fans over there. It's almost like it's if they lose, if the Jets win or lose, I might, depending on what happens on the field, I might not give it too much credence just because of that whole factor. It's a whole different bizarre circumstance going to London to play a game on Sunday morning. Well, Sunday morning
Well,
for us, but Sunday afternoon for them.
I think we can agree on that, Ed, but I think we could both also agree that how do they lose? Like, do they lose? Did they play a good game
Yes,
with hardly any
agreed.
penalties and Rodgers threw for 300 yards and, the running backs did their thing, or were they sloppy? So those are the factors we have to look at, which
And
is
I'm
very
also
important.
curious on really how banged up he looked pretty banged up at the end of that game. So I'm just curious on how banged up that knee is and how at one point, like I was even thinking yesterday, if he doesn't go on the flight to London, I wouldn't be so surprised if he says, "Listen, I need a week to rest. I can't be going overseas, taking 1,000 mile flights to go overseas
I don't think that's in his DNA. I think he's looking to right the ship. Mm.
I don't know. It might not be in his DNA, but it might be in his knee. I mean, or his ability. So we'll see.
So like, let's take a look at this scenario now. Now, if we beat the Vikings, that'd be obviously great. All right. So let's assume. I mean, do you really feel that we're going to beat the Vikings first of all?
I think there's a good chance they could beat the Vikings. It's one of those, being a Jet fan, it's one of those weird, like I said, the London factor. Aaron Rodgers knows this is going to be on national TV early in the morning, 9:30 in the morning for us. It's funny. Imagine being in California, waking up at 6:30 a.m. to watch an NFL football game live.
Yep.
So I think that could factor into it, assuming he's physically fit and sound. So nothing will surprise me Sunday game. If it was home, I would say differently, but this is why that whole factor adds a little hoopla to it. This is it's like a playoff game in a way because you're flying, you're playing a neutral site, and you're on national TV. It's the only game at that time. It's gonna be interesting. Nothing would surprise me with this team if they win by 30, lose by 30, or lose a tight game.
So I'm chomping at the bit to get to this part now. Let's just say, and this would be so. Listen, football's like a soap opera. I mean, it's like a show I
It
can't
is.
stop watching. I love it. I love it. And like I'm not just saying that to try to cushion the blow about the Jets doing bad. I'm a Jets fan, but I enjoy the whole soap opera
It is,
story of it.
Dave. That's a great point before you go on. You know why? Because football is one game a week, right?
Yeah,
So it's like a TV show. It's baseball games 162, hockey 81, so
right.
so, so 82. So it's hard to one game. Those other sports you forget about it in a couple of days. Football lingers. Those bad losses linger with you for the entire weekend or until you turn it around. So football is like a soap opera.
Yeah, it definitely is. So here's the deal. Tell me what you think about this now. This gets me excited. Let's just say, so now I'm looking at these crazy storyline scenarios, which are fascinating to me and keep me interested. Uh, so number one, the Jets win against Minnesota. Great. Okay. Now, what if they lose to Minnesota and now they have to play the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football? Think about that pressure and what's going to happen if they lose that game as well. I mean, this is going to really go off the rails. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
It would go, yeah. Oh, they would get buried in the papers. It would
It's going to
be
be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
The
So
fans would be just listening to talk radio all week long. You'd be. I mean, I don't know if you heard a little bit this week. Listening to some of the talk radio, it's pretty funny. Some of the comments about the Jets and what they're, and what happened with them and what they need to do. It's whether it's fire Salah, he's the worst coach in football, or get rid of Rodgers,
it's
or pray for Devontae Adams. There's a lot going on, so it's interesting.
listen. I mean, I always speak like I'm afraid to like have things come back and bite me in the ass, and sometimes like I just speak it anyway, and a little sarcasm. But the bottom line is the Jets. No matter, let's see how they play on against Minnesota, and then it's just going to be crazy leading up to the Buffalo game. And if they listen, here's my thing, Ed. And I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. And I know it's early in the season, and I know things can turn around, and I believe they will. I can't believe that Rodgers is going to play, whatever, and the whole team's going to play bad. But last year, I think the Jets had at least three quarterbacks play. And then if you throw in Joe Flacco the year before, okay, and I can't think all. I think it was Timmy Boyle, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Trevor Simeon, Mike White. You tell me every single one of these quarterbacks sucks and can't do anything. All those quarterbacks are that bad. And now Aaron Rodgers played like those guys. I mean, it's got to be something to do with coach. It has to be something going on here that we don't see. And it's early, and that was one game, which I never thought I'd see happen. but it's just bizarre that no matter. So what I'm leading into, and I'm sure you heard this whole Devontae Adams rumor.
Yep.
At this point, I'll get your opinion in a second. It doesn't matter who you put on this team. It's like it's cursed. It doesn't matter. Is it going to matter if Devontae Adams comes here? I mean, what's that going to do? You know, what I
No,
mean,
agreed. I don't want him
crazy.
here. It's I hope they don't make the trade because I'm afraid if they do trade him, Garrett Wilson's going to be included in that trade. But we'll see. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But going
We'll
back
see.
to the Bill game for a second, what's interesting is the Bills, looked awful this past week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they got a tough game this Sunday too. So if they lose
Mm.
that game and they're 3-2, they're going to be looking to put a whoop it on the Jets. So that's going to be this week's going to be interesting for a number of reasons. That being one of them.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, like I said, it's a long season. My thing is, I mean, I'm more disappointed about the way the Jets played than I am the loss. I really am. I mean, because I want to see it. I want to see like when they played against the Patriots. That was always my thing with the Jets in the past. And I told everybody, I never see the Jets go up and down the field, 80-yard drives. They won games back in the day, even with Sanchez, because the defense played well. They got good field position. They recovered a fumble. I want to see the team, like they did against the Patriots, go up and down the field and score touchdowns.
I
So
agree. But too bad we can't play the Patriots every week. Right?
I know. So like I said, just to wrap it up, we'll see what happens this week with the Vikings. It's going to be really interesting because I really feel I'm excited for the win. And if they lose, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen at the press conferences and then going into Buffalo and see how that turns out. And hopefully we can talk about that again next week as well after this game happens. So I love it sometimes for the wrong reasons. I want the Jets to do well and continue, and win. But it's such a
Like you said, it's either like a soap opera or a car accident. Sometimes you can't, no matter how bad it is, you can't take your eyes off
oh
it
boy.
sometimes.
And I think we both agree now with Rodgers and the bad knee. I mean, this can go downhill quickly. And we're only.
I could see him leaving him in for 1 or 2 series and then pulling him just to show him on national TV in London and then pulling him.
And you know what? We can go back and play this again because we don't know what's going to happen. There's a long season left, but we all agree that he's a couple of hits away from either being out for the season or losing enough games where he has no interest in coming back next year. And then everybody's going, the coaches and everybody's going. So.
Did you see that funny meme, Dave, at the end of you see the end of the game when they missed the field goal and he put the towel over his head? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
You just see the meme. It said that the true moment where Aaron Rodgers became a Jet and he started the towel on his head like that. That's pretty funny.
Listen, I have a lot of confidence in Aaron Rodgers. I believe like he is like the offensive coordinator and the head coach. And I mean, that's what I feel. That's why I thought we were going to have a good season, and we still could. But this is going to be really. I'm really glad we're playing the undefeated Vikings this week, and then I'm also glad we're playing the Buffalo Bills next week because I think we're going to find out things quickly as opposed to waiting for later on down the road where this team is at.
I mean, it's week 5. If you're gonna be a Super Bowl contender, this is what you got to do. You got to win the big games.
Yep.
Very simple.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. It'll be breakfast with the Jets, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. I'll probably have pancakes and maybe a Bloody Mary or something like that, or vodka and orange juice, who knows.
Yeah,
And I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out. I just hope I see an exciting game regardless of the outcome.
You and me both, Dave. You and me both.
All right, Ed, thanks for joining me, and
Thanks for having me.
be well.
Thanks, you too, Dave.
Take care.